of communication.
Let's lead the way, lighten the future, share the wisdom to the spirit of Islam. Revelation and reason shall excel, shall prevail. Merging faith and knowledge, we the Khalifa, we will fulfill the amanah. Together we make the world a better place. Forever expand the culture of Iqra. IUN is to realize the meaning of Rahmatan lil Alameen. Together we make the world a better place. Forever expand the culture of Iqra.
Okay. academic for the very brief version of your wealth of experience, Prof. Hussein. Without further ado, let us all welcome Prof. Hussein.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Whatever method model.
Up to your, as long as you're comfortable.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Honorable Associate Professor Dr. Habibullah Zakaria, Deputy Dean, Academics and Internationalization, International Islamic University, Malaysia. Honorable Professor Dr. Rosnan, Honorable Professor Dr. Salima Hasim, Honorable Head of Programs, respected delegations from the Hadith Quran International, Pakistan, India, and representatives of the Hadith University, Lahore. Dear students, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I would like to thank International Islamic University, Malaysia, for providing me with this opportunity. Attend this seminar on this very important topic. And I believe a number of participants they have also joined this session through Zoom online platform. And I believe this session is taking place during the semester break here at the university. But still, I would like to thank the management for organizing this during the semester break. May Allah Almighty accept this gathering for whatever purpose we all have gathered here. Whatever we are going to discuss and speak on, may Allah Almighty provide us with strength to act upon it, think about it, and spread the words of wisdom to other brothers and sisters in Islam. The topic which I have been assigned to speak on today is mobilizing the resources in OIC countries through Waqf. Before I get on to the topic to discuss what exactly the model I have proposed in regards to Waqf, let's go into the history in the times of Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What we see there. So we'll take it from there on. The concept of mobilizing resources, usually people consider or think that is a new concept, or maybe that has come from the Western civilization or Western developed countries. But that is not the case. We can find the concept of mobilizing resources for economic development right during the times of Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. As we get education in every single aspect of our life from the life of Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Similarly, we also get the inspiration, education, and learning about economic development, economic prosperity, mobilization of resources, and all those areas which could benefit any nation or country in regards to economy. So we get all those learning and lessons from the life of Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So, there is an interesting event after Hijrah. The Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam migrated to Medina to Munawwara, and the first state of Islam was established. So we see an incident taking place there, and that incident is called Ishaq-e Medina. or in other words, that document is called a Sahifa. Or in other words, that document has been called the Constitution of the. So that provides us with a beautiful story that how this resource mobilization and this concept today, what we all are thinking about and need to look into, developed and emerged right in those 10 years after the migration of Sayyidina Rasulullah. So what exactly that the Sahifa, the document did to Ummah? If we look into those days, the state of Medina was a place where various communities were living. The tribes belonging to Jewish community, tribes belonging to some other communities, and then after the migrations, Muslims were also started living in the state of Medina. So people belonging to different backgrounds, different tribes, different cultures, different traditions, followers of different law and codes, they all came together and started living in one boundary. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam got every single tribe living in the state of Medina to sign an agreement, a document called a Sahifa, a document called the Constitution of Medina later on. And after signing that document, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam established a concept for the very first time in the history of mankind that people belonging to different tribes, people belonging to different traditions, different cultures, different backgrounds, coming from different communities, they all can come together to form one unity for economic prosperity, for political stability, for the development of any community, nation, or state. So this was the concept for the very first time that emerged from the Sunnah of Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So that right beginning provided the state of Medina with political stability. And all these communities, they came together to settle on one document. And they learned to respect each other, learned to give decent space to each other, learned to give and provide the margins to each other. This was the whole concept. It started. So I believe today, when we talk about Muslim unity and united goals and objectives of Ummah, I believe this very first example coming from the life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam can set a great precedent, provide us with a great example to follow in present world where we all are divided in 55 Muslim countries under the banner of OIC. But still we do not work together. But still we do not trade with each other. But still we do not respect and protect each other. We do not provide and back each other. Whereas we all are the followers of one religion. We all are the followers of one Prophet, Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We all are the believers of what God is. But still, we respect, we stay with our own traditions, our own cultures, our own identities. But 1400 years ago, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave us an example that everyone can have their own tribes, their own traditions, cultures, they respect them, they stay with them. But still for the economic unity, economic stability, political stability, economic flourishment, they can all come together and find and form one unity. So this is one great example. So let's talk about another example, again from the life of Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What that example is called Waqf Medina, the brotherhood of Medina, which was formed again by Sayyidina Abdullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam right after the migration to Medina. This gives us a great example how a mobilization of resources takes place. So this is not a new or a modern conventional economic concept. This is very much Islamic concept. This is very much the concept given by Rasulullah. The mobilization of resources took place through Muakhat Madina. What that story is, we all know. When Muhajirin from Mecca, they migrated to Madinatul Munawwara. So they left their properties, assets, and wealth behind. And when they arrived in Medina, they had nothing in their hands. So now there were two ways. Either they reinvent the wheel, they start a new beginning, and it might take a very long time. But on the other hand, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam went with the second option. He created a history by Waqf Medina. How? Imagine, just go back into the history 1400 years ago. Some people, unknown to Ansars of Medina, they don't have relations, they don't have friendships, they don't have common cultures, they don't have common traditions. And suddenly a big bunch of people arrive from Mecca and meet Ansar. They are not brothers, they are not cousins. They even do not share any other relationship other than one faith. And suddenly one day Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam announces, whosoever has 2 agricultural lands, give one to your Muhajir brother. Whosoever have 2 houses, give one to your Muhajir brother. Whosoever has 2 vehicles or animals to ride on, give one to your Muhajir brother. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is actually asking Ansar to do something which even today one brother won't do for his another biological brother. Can you understand the spirit which Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam established right at the beginning of the establishment of the state of Islam? This is Islam. This is the spirit of Islam. We have lost that spirit. Even we have been divided in 55 Muslim countries, but where is that spirit? Which was seen right at the beginning of the emergence of Islam. Today, 2 biological brothers won't do that. If one brother have 2 houses, would anybody would be agreed to give one house to his other brother who doesn't have one? Maybe he would lend a brother second house, or he would let him or her live there for a little while before he gets his own property. But the Ansars are doing such sacrifice right at the beginning, where they don't know those people who are coming from Mecca, except they have one commonality, and commonality is the relationship with Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So even all of us living in 55 Muslim countries under the banner of OIC, we still have that identity. We still have that connection and relationship with our Prophet, beloved Prophet Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So we enjoy that identity, but we do not have that kind of spirit anymore in our lives, even though we all are the believers of Islam, but we do not have that kind of spirit today. That is something which lacks. It's not the number of Muslims. It's not the number of countries. It's not the development. It's not the flourishment. It's not the new economic ideas. It's not the education. It's not the degrees anymore which would develop. What lacks is the spirit. What lacks is the quality of faith. What lacks is ikhlas in our faith and deen. What lacks is trust in God Almighty. What lacks is trust in the personality of Sayyidina Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What lacks in the basic concepts and ideas of Islam. That has brought us to this state where we all stand today and suffering. So these are two interesting examples which became the pioneering starting stones for the economy, the Islamic economy established by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And there were few more initiatives taken by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam 1400 years ago for mobilization of resources as well as economic stability. He introduced economic reforms in the state of Medina. What were those reforms? He introduced agriculture reforms. 1400 years ago. If today anyone stands, maybe a believer of socialist economic system or a communist economic system, and says that we are the founders and pioneers of the distribution, the just distribution of resources among haves and have-nots, no, that would be right to say. The right statement would be Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the pioneer of the concept of distribution, a just distribution of resources among haves and have-nots. When he established all that in state of Medina, what he did, he said that now from today, whoever make an agriculture land alive or plant it, he would be the owner of that land. So that was the first interesting and important reform he introduced. So by that, he actually right away provided a food security to the state of Medina. By not just buying the property, he said, whosoever will habitat and establish and plant the agriculture land and work on agriculture land, so he would become the owner of that land. And from now on, the asset will belong to that person. So right away, every single piece of land, agriculture land of Medina, people were working on them and they were established right away. So in a very short period of time, so food security issue was gone. That was a tremendous, remarkable reform introduced by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And not just that, he also introduced some social finance tools and instruments 1400 years ago. And what were those? He introduced and established an institution of zakat. He introduced and established an institution of sadaqat, that mandatory almsgiving and optional almsgiving. So both institutions were established so that the money and wealth doesn't stay in specific hands, but the mobilization of resources take place. So the concept which we all understand today, that for the economic flourishment and development, mobilization of resources is needed. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam understood about that concept 1400 years ago. And basically zakat and sadaqat, and of course, Muakhat Medina, all these initiatives became the reason behind mobilization of resources 1400 years ago. And in a very short period of time, just in 10 years, the state of Medina became a superpower of the region. By just having a faith in Allah Almighty, having a strong belief and faith in the personality of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and by introducing a just reforms towards society, economic reform, which could provide a wealthy and healthy economic environment to the state of Medina. Dear students and audience, today OIC, the Organization of Islamic Countries, they are comprising of 55 member countries, which was founded on the principle of unity based on the shared religion of Islam, despite their diverse geographical locations and economic conditions. These nations come together under OIC, under this banner, to promote solidarity and cooperation, addressing the common challenges. Yeah. Are you displeased? And you could go to, yes. So I thought you were gonna do it automatically, but
Okay.
now I understand. I'm sorry for that.
It's okay.
So addressing those challenges. So, but unfortunately, having that bonding of religion between these 55 countries, still we could not harness the benefits and fruits of that unity. Why? I have explained the reason why we could not. We do not have a trust among us, even though we have a faith, common faith, but we do not trust each other. And if we talk about our partners, major trading partners, so every single Muslim country among these 55 nations of OIC, if you look at their trade partner, you will find that every single Muslim country have more trade partners in non-Muslim world than their own within among the OIC member countries. Either it is United States, Germany, Europe, or any other country. Same example, I can give examples from Pakistan, I can give examples from Malaysia, I can examples from Indonesia, from Turkey, and many other countries. So we have more trust and more trade with other countries. Not saying that trading on the basis of comparative advantage is wrong, of course not. The world has changed, it's a globalized world. From where the country gets more comparative advantage, so the country must produce the product, whatever the country has a comparative advantage. But talking about that unity and mobilization of resources within us and that economic prosperity that needs trust within each other, for each other. Unfortunately, that is something we have. So despite their combined potential, these nations have not yet harnessed their collective resources to advance in scientific and technological arenas. Joint funding initiatives and collaborative research projects are imperative for bridging this gap. If we need to do that, so we need to start working on these areas among 55 Muslim countries. Again, and this robust foundation for a scientific innovation and space exploration is something which we all need to look at because the world has changed. Other day, actually last night we had a dinner and or in the discussion I was mentioning that interestingly. We have a 55 Muslim countries and we even doesn't have a one common strong social media platform. Want to talk about economic platforms and anything else. For instance, someone bans that from now on, these 55 Muslim countries, their statements or their viewpoint will not be propagated on those popular social media platforms. So Muslim world does not have one in 21st century because the trust is not there. Common grounds, common work, joint ventures, the concept is not there. And we are working with other countries. And I've already mentioned the trading partners. We have the trading partners with other countries. So many Muslim countries, especially the Arab countries, they are depending on oil and gas. They are oil and gas rich countries, Arab countries. Unfortunately, this wealth has not translated into industrial growth. Why? Because we do not share resources with each other. If one nation has a wealth, they can invest in industry. Other nation, they might have skill, intellect. So their intellect and the wealth of some other country, they can come together to develop industries. But we do not do that among our own countries. This is something we need to work on. Following the example established by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam 1400 years ago. So now what we are facing today among these 55 Muslim nations, external interest-based debts. Why that happens? I give you a very basic layman example. Let's look at that example. If you remember, especially our elders sitting here, when it was little more peaceful time in olden days, people living in villages or in a small localities, people used to, when someone is in need, they would go and ask for assistance to their neighbor, to their friends, to their family members. They won't go to banks for the loan. And the assistance would come, so nobody is under the burden of loans. Everyone helps each other to flourish. So it was a joint growth concept of joint growth, mutual growth. But as we moved on and shifted in urban areas, we become developed, we become more civilized in present definition. So what we did, we do not speak to our family members. We do not seek help from our friends and brothers. We simply go to bank and seek loan because the social fabric has destroyed. We are not comfortable asking for help. We said rather asking for help from a friend or a family member is better to go to bank and get a loan on interest. That's how we get under the burden of interest every single day. Similarly, in the same manner, all these Muslim countries are behaving. Would you like to move? Further? Yes, one more. Just let's keep it here. Thank you. So, what is this whole Muslim world is doing at the moment? Let's look at some figures of external debt on Muslim countries. 55 Muslim countries together, and some are wealthiest one. But still, look at the figures, what we all are into. Yemen, a figure from 2022, their total external debt is over 22 billion US dollars. And the principal repayment they made was around 0.1474. And interest payment they made was 0.0389. Let's talk about Egypt. In 22, their total external debt from IMF or Paris Club or all these big organizations is around 163 billion US dollars. And the principal payment which was paid in 22 was around $11 billion and 6.127, yani over $6 billion was just paid as interest on this payment. $6 billion. Can you imagine one country, how much that country can do with that $6 billion? But we are just paying this amount as an interest payment. Let's talk about Turkey. In 22, their total external debt is around $458 billion. And $51 billion was paid as a principal amount. And over 17 billion US dollar was just paid as interest. $17 billion in 22. So you can imagine, by not seeking for help and cooperation and coordinating among themselves, just every single Muslim nation, and putting more burden on them and their future, the development is going straight. If you talk about Pakistan in 22, their total external debt is 126 billion US dollar. And in 22, around $13 billion was paid as a principal amount, and $3.4975 billion was just paid in interest. This is what is happening. I have just given you a couple of examples. Whereas Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam provided us with the tools and instruments like zakat, like sadaqah, like waqf. But we do not learn from those practices. And we are burdening ourselves with all those modern gadgets, tools, techniques, and instruments. That's why these countries are not flourishing, and that there is a cap upon every single country. They do not rise above that cap. If we decide today to cooperate with each other for the mutual benefit, for the mutual growth, things can change tremendously. Let's talk about Waqf. That is another instrument and technique introduced again by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Some might think that this is a new product of Islamic finance established somewhere 50, 60 years ago. No, this whole concept came again from the Sunnah and life of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Why every single example and solution lies in the life of Rasulullah. It's just a matter of regathering yourself and start learning from the life of Rasulullah. So when that institution was happening, the first ever mosque established by Muslim community. What was that mosque? Al-Quba in Medina al-Munawwara, at the start of Medina al-Munawwara. So the land which was given to build this mosque, the first mosque of Islam, that was a Waqf land. Then again, the construction of Masjidul Nabawi in Medina al-Munawwara, the land was Waqf. In those days, the water was the major issue for the community, so wells were bought and made Waqf towards the Muslim community. And not just that, there is another interesting example from the life of Sayyidina Umar bin al-Khattab radiallahu ta'ala. Once he received a piece of agricultural land in Khyber. So he came to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and requested him, O Prophet of Islam sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in the whole of my life, the piece of land in Khyber is the most expensive and valuable property I have ever owned. So please tell me, what should I do with this piece of land? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that this is an agriculture piece of land. Keep it agriculture, but make it Waqf towards Muslim community, so that whatever the produce comes from this agriculture land, that must go towards the benefit and support of Muslim community. So that was another form of Waqf. Again, the example was set times 1400 years ago by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Sayyidina Umar bin al-Khattab. Now, this Waqf has changed into many shapes. Many modern shapes have emerged out of the basic property-based concept of Waqf. Now there is a cash Waqf. There are combined models of Waqf and social finance instruments, and then commercial finance instruments and Waqf. And there are so many examples going on. Malaysia is a wonderful example. They have utilized Waqf in a very appreciable manner. And they have adopted the concept of Waqf for the development of hospitals and schools and the commercial towers and other infrastructures. Same as the case was in Ottoman Empire. The maximum that empire benefited in terms of their infrastructure and even their road infrastructure and all those things. That all was made through Waqf and without borrowing the money on interest from banks. So they did their developments. Today, what we are doing, even if we talk about Pakistan, for every single thing, we have to build a power plant. We run towards other countries. They lend us money on interest basis. We have to build a bridge. We run towards other countries for lending money, for asking money on the interest basis. And we have not explored this great treasure of Waqf, which could make these Muslim nations get rid of the vicious circle of interest, riba, and flourish and develop all these countries together. So all these examples, and even if you talk about world's first university called Qarawiyun in Morocco, that was a land of Waqf. The first university again, Al-Azhar, that was established on Waqf. All these great examples we see in the Muslim history, all these developments have taken place on the basis of Waqf. But we have thrown away this whole concept, which actually was our legacy, the legacy of Islam. And we have tried and adopted other instruments in our lives, in our countries, and made ourselves economically worse. Dear audience, while understanding the spirit of Misaki Medina, the constitution of Medina, and the spirit of Muakhate Medina. So some time ago, I proposed a model. This will be publishing soon in my upcoming book called Beyond IMF. So I have proposed this model in that book. What that model is. This whole model is under the banner of OIC, Organization of Islamic Countries, establishing an institution and not a bank to look after all those needs of all the Muslim countries, which usually we all go and fulfill by lending money from banks and other such institutions like IMF and Banks Club. So I proposed an institution, gave it a name, Muslim Common Waqf, MCW. So that was a model I worked on and then proposed it some time ago. So I want to discuss and talk about that model and discuss some details of that model for our understanding. So can we move the slide? Yes, thank you. So if you look at the slide, you see a structure here. What I have proposed is, as we all know, there are many wealthy nations in the Muslim countries, Arab nations, with a lot of oil-based wealth and gas-based wealth. And then there are a lot of rich people. And then we all know that there is a concept of mandatory zakah and the concept of sadaqah and then the concept of sadaqah jariyah in Islam. So considering all those elements coming from our religion, and then at the same time the institution of Waqf, if we can bring all these tools and instruments together to form MCW, which is Muslim Common Waqf, under the banner of OIC, and that institution should be given a mandate. Whenever the country is facing a fiscal deficit or a country is in need for their infrastructure development, or they want to establish a hospital or a road infrastructure, or maybe a CPAC project in Pakistan or anything. So instead of going towards those institutions who are lending money on interest basis, they should come to MCW, the Muslim Common Waqf, which would be under the banner of OIC. And that Waqf fulfills the need of their brother nations, again following the spirit of Misaki Medina and Muakhate Medina. That addresses that answer. We are Malaysians, they are Pakistanis, they are Arabs. Why we should help them? We should help our own nation. So Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not educate us the way we all think today. We are one community. We are the followers of Rasulullah. Helping each other, supporting, strengthening each other, mobilizing resources, not just within our country, but within our ummah, should be a larger objective and goal. So you see at the structure, so in the beginning, a contribution comes from the countries and wealthy individuals, and then a continuous digital platform for continuous donations by a regular community and support, and all such levels and tiers can be created for funding purposes. That can continue and to come in Waqf fund. So asset can be donated to that Waqf fund, cash donations can be made towards Waqf fund, zakat can be given to the Waqf fund, the sadaqat can be given to the Waqf fund, And all those tools and techniques can be adopted, and instruments can be, and avenues can be adopted for creating that fund. Once that fund is created, so that fund would be regularized and operated and supervised by OIC. The body can have different office bearers coming from different countries of OIC, and then people can be changing the way European Union works. So one time Prime Minister comes from one country, and then the second time Prime Minister comes from second country. So everyone has an ownership on the concept. So the positions can, the offices can revolve around. So then the management team, and then there are tiers and committees for disbursement of the fund. And then a list of objectives and maqasid can be defined under that MCW institution. And those maqasid could be, for example, fulfilling the fiscal deficit and needs of Muslim nations, their infrastructure developments, and they should more focus on institutional development, educational infrastructure development, empowering the weaker segments of the society in various countries, getting rid of hunger, poverty. So all these maqasid of Sharia can be adopted as a main objective of that Waqf institution established under OIC. So then from that pool, funds can be given, and the donations will not be the only source for that pool. Then that Waqf institution will also work the way international investment entities work as well. Investing in various multinationals, in various projects and funding as well, again to enhance and expand the pool of the funds. So they will be working on both ways, lending the money without interest to the nations, and then at the same time investing in various commercial projects to expand and enhance the pool of that fund, financial pool of that fund. So that pool and fund can expand on regular basis, and that would become a big entity by the passage of time. So if you could move on the next slide, please. Yes. Okay, let's talk about the process flow. So the Islamic countries will actively engage in MCW fund by giving financial resources. I have just explained. Donations would be one of the source. Money management and disbursement staff will be independently dispersing and then assessing. So these are the regular procedures any bank or any credit union or any entity would follow. That is not the very nitty-gritties and the details. So I'm just explaining the general whole idea. This pool money will be transferred, and the digital platforms can be created in every single country. For example, someone sitting in Yemen, or someone sitting in Pakistan, or someone sitting in Bangladesh, or sitting in Malaysia. So anyone would directly donate to that one through digital platform. That would be an opportunity which will help. For example, anybody sitting feel like donating towards a bigger cause and helping our Muslim nation somewhere in trouble. So he can, while sitting at home from his mobile phone or her mobile phone, he or she should be eligible to transfer their funds directly towards that Waqf pool, which would be looking after all those Muslim nations at large. And then at the same time, there would be another committee who would be looking towards the investment ventures within that ambit and investing more money into it, and to enhance and increase the pool for that one. So even SDG goals can be looked into, environmental objectives and initiatives can also be important part of it. And there are so many other things you can associate to it, introduced in this whole concept. So the basic concept is that bringing nations together, wealth of the country as well as wealth of the individual, to form this kind of a tool to help the nations and stopping them going towards those institutions who are lending them money on the basis of interest. And we have personally seen in our lifetime, no country has so far come out of that kind of vicious circle, interest-based vicious circle. So ultimately, these countries go in vain and they are destroyed, their economies are destroyed. And if we could shift back and return to this old concept of Waqf, which was provided by Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, these nations under the banner of OIC can do wonders. It's just a matter of establishing trust among us and looking forward out of the box. And that doesn't have to be a political agenda. We do not need to politicize these things internationally. That can strictly consider economic. That can stay economic. For the betterment, for the development, for education, for healthcare, for alleviating the poverty from these poor nations, for developing the infrastructure, for bringing all these 55 countries at par to each other, their lifestyle, their living standard. So their earnings, their revenues, bringing everything at par. So that doesn't have to be a political agenda or a part of any political slogan or politicizing this whole thing. No, this is not political. This is humanitarian. This is for humanity. This is for alleviating the poverty from the society. This is for education. This is for the upliftment of weaker segments of the society. We don't need to challenge other practices. We do not need to say no to something, but we need to say yes to those models given by Rasulullah. So don't say no to anything, but say yes to those positive ideas so that they can flourish. Whenever the governments politicize these basic ideas, the politicization of these ideas become a hurdle in our way. When you keep a politics away and keep this whole idea strictly economic and humanitarian and focus on it, I believe that will be something doable. Dear audience, in the end, as a conclusion, I would say the strategic employment of Waqf in the Organization of Islamic Countries would exemplify a significant innovation in resource mobilization tailored to enhance social economic development and resource disparities within these nations. As Waqf continues to evolve, integrating both traditional Islamic values and modern financial systems, it holds a promise of fostering sustainable development across diverse economic landscapes to optimize the benefits of Waqf and extend its impact further. Several strategies and recommendations are proposed. For example, effective management of Waqf asset is crucial for maximizing their socio-economic impact. A digital platform of Waqf management is something which would be considered significant while flourishing and developing of this Waqf institution. Further leveraging digital tools can help bridge and digital divide highlighted in the economic report of OIC countries. Waqf funds should be strategically invested in diverse sectors such as technology, healthcare, and renewable energy, which offer long-term growth potential and can contribute to the broader economic base of OIC countries. By diversifying investments, Waqf can reduce reliance on traditional sectors and foster greater economic resilience. Moreover, such strategic investments align with global trends and market demands, providing sustainable income streams to fund social welfare projects. To mobilize resources effectively, it is essential to engage the community actively and enhance their understanding of Waqf benefit. For that purpose, educational programs aimed at raising awareness about the socio-economic impact of Waqf and training sessions on social financial literacy related to Islamic finance can empower individuals to contribute actively to Waqf fund. Community engagement initiatives can also include workshops and seminars that encourage entrepreneurial ventures supported by Waqf financing, thereby fostering a culture of innovation and self-reliance. By implementing these recommendations, Waqf can significantly advance its role as a robust instrument for socio-economic development and commercial development in OIC countries. These strategic initiatives will not only enhance the management and operations of Waqf, but also expands its impact, making it a cornerstone for sustainable development and economic resilience in Islamic world. In the end, I would again like to thank the management and the academic leadership of International Islamic University of Malaysia for providing me this opportunity to speak on such an important topic, a topic which is very much dear to my heart. And I believe I was able to do little bit justice to the topic. I pray to Allah Almighty that whatever we have said, Allah Almighty provide us with strength, ikhlas, so that we can act upon it, or at least we spread the word around. Thank you, wassalam.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much for the insightful, very insightful speech. I hope you can join me in a grand round of applause for the insightful. Okay, dear audience, we do have the Q&A session. I know that some of you would have some burning questions to ask. If you would like to ask, you can raise your hands and, okay, we have several questions. All right, how do we go about it? From how, we go as the question.
We can start it from right side and.
Okay,
Point from the back.
all right, okay, please. Brother, yeah.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Firstly, I appreciate our prof for the insightful delivery. Barakallahu feekum wa jazakumullahu khair. With regard to the WCM, MCW, okay. I want to raise a particular issue that is giving me a kind of concerns. It's the issue of corruption in many countries. Actually, based on my perspective, I think if we look at some of those countries that are getting maybe loans from IMF, some of them doesn't need even loan. They only need to address the issue of corruption. Even some of them will get loan and even embezzle maybe many parts of it. If we have a kind of arrangement, how are we going to address that? How maybe we need to look, how are we going, what are the arrangements we're going to make so that we will not be getting the resources of Ummah, and at the end of the day, it will be mismanaged. So I want to raise an issue of maybe sukuk. Can we implement sukuk in that aspect? That's my first question. The second question is with regards to government that seek funds. There are several purposes for seeking funds. One of them is that maybe they are into problem. I think that can be addressed maybe with Waqf. But at times, they seek fund for the purpose of maybe further development.
Yeah.
I think it is just for a time for luxury. Maybe that should be in a way of maybe we have our own bank too. And they can just lend the money and return it because they are not in what should I call in distress.
Yeah.
So and that's Salam
Alaikum. Thank you very much for your question. There were two parts of it. first I'll address the sukuk thing. Yes, the first major issue is creating that kind of a pool, which we are giving a name, MCW. Once that kind of a pool is there, we do not need to stick to one code. Many products can be introduced from that tool and pool of the fund or money. Whatever would be appropriate, and then the committee supervising that fund will find appropriate. By the passage of time, they'll keep on developing more products, introducing more options and modes of financing to the Muslim nations. So that is very open and flexible. So we do not need to stick to any specific one. So that would be according to the need and desire of the nation. So collectively, people can decide, the nations can decide what to be issued and what not. So who can be formulated and adopted as well. So coming to the second part, which was about the corruption. Yes, of course, many countries, corruption is in their blood, unfortunately. So, and some countries, they actually, they only transfusion of blood won't help. The replacement is needed. But then again, there can be a starting point for a long journey, maybe a journey of 1,000 miles. So even every single journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step. First step. So 3-4 nations deem appropriate, or they are clear, not corrupt very much, and clear in ideology and thought, and with the wealth, they can start together, and then gradually other nations can join. So that is one thing which is doable. Secondly, as I have mentioned, this whole body, international body, under the OIC, who would be looking after and in charge of dispersing the funds. So we have to be very much careful about it, ensuring the transparency and corruption-free practices. Of course, the way the governments keep any country corruption-free, similarly, on the same manner, all these countries and the management coming from these countries, they would need to keep that fund and institution corruption-free too. It's just a matter of the way we run it, the way we operate it. And as you said, there are many countries, they are benefiting, they sometimes do not need a loan, and then they go to other institutions for lending, getting the money. So yes, they do sometimes, but wherever I see among the Muslim countries, especially the third world countries, non-Arab countries, most of these countries, they are in their need of fund, infrastructure development, healthcare facility and everything. So of course, they would need that money, and sometimes if some countries, they are too much under some kind of a pressure and stress, and they would not join this institution, still 3-4 initial countries, they can start it and then let carry on. For example, I tell you a very interesting example for everyone else as well. In World War II, France and Germany, they were the biggest enemies. They used to share a very hostile relations and conditions and with each other. But then someone came up with an idea. How about establishing a common steel industry? So Germany and France, they came together to make one steel industry. So now both nations, they were sharing the economic interests. So they stopped fighting. They said, no, now if we destroy one nation, so technically we are damaging our economy and wealth as well. So they stop fighting. When a common interest is there, so we have to start with 2-3 nations, and gradually more members can certainly. Like even European Union started with 3-4 members, then 3-4 members more added into it, then couple of more added, and now it's a European Union of over 24 members. So same is the case. We will start for everything, and then once it's gone, so then more people, more entities and members can on.
Thank you for that answer. Okay, let's move on to the next question. I see.
I think now we go to that.
Okay, right.
Then you come back.
Yeah, please state your question briefly.
Yeah.
Right to the point, and that so that we can accommodate more questions, inshallah.
Assalamualaikum. Right. Thanks so much for the insightful presentation. My question is, How can the proposed model be compared to ISDB, which are managing currently managing around $40 billion, and they're actually using Waqf, Sadaqah, Zakat, all the Islamic finance instruments to help the develop or the infrastructure of their over more than 50 member countries. And how can we compare ISDB to the proposal?
All right, thank you.
Thank you for the question. There are many such initiatives in Muslim world as well as other non-Muslim countries. So they are providing grants and financial assistance and support in specific areas. There are two issues usually. Even international entities, when they are providing fund to other countries, usually that funding comes with an agenda. It's not a fair deal. So whenever the funding is provided to any country, so then there are demands as well. Then they come along for those things. Secondly, these support and funding for education and health sector or all these areas, they do not deal with fiscal deficits of the country. So for those fiscal deficits, again, every single country they go to IMF or Paris Club or some other world institutions. So there are some commonalities, or there would be some commonalities with this kind of initiative, but there would be some add-ons too, which would be certainly looking after all those areas which are not dealt with a simple specific grant or financial assistance or support for a specific sector. And 40 billion is nothing. Or when you talk about financially assisting countries and helping them with their fiscal deficits on annual basis, and then expanding the pool through investments and other ventures. So that would also attract some joint industries as well among the Muslim countries. If such initiative is taken, the way I have just explained, the European Union making a joint steel industry among the 3-4 countries. So such initiative will propagate and promote some joint industries among the Muslim countries as well, when they will know the funding is coming from one single pool. So the joint ventures can be take place. So there would be some similarities, but then there is much more to those whatever is just happening with under these banners, existing initiative, and mainly getting rid of those interest-based loans to deal with the fiscal deficits of the country. That is something this Waqf will deal.
Let's take, I see from the industry, Mr. Hamid Rashid.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Hamid Rashid. I come from the background of Waqf technology, global technology. I think partly you have answered the question regarding ISDB and its role in the OIC. I think my specific question, and maybe to pick your brain, is on two factors on your model. One is the OIC, every country has a Waqf Act and the Waqf law itself, right? And a lot of this act and laws are very much enacted based on the mazhab of those countries, right? So very much speaking about the Hanafi, Shafi, even in specific countries, in the Shia Waqf as well. And then in Bahrain, the Jafariya Waqf Act, it as well. Now, what happens when the technology descends into individual countries? The act does not support the workflows, okay? So what is your take in getting countries to actually adopt a unified technology platform or even a unified process where the act does not support? And the amendments to Waqf Act, Waqf laws is, I think, the largest challenge today that exists in the Waqf industry itself. Now, for the last 2 days in India, there's a very big challenge going on the amendment of the Waqf Act itself, 1995 Act. And last 2 days, a lot of lobbying is going on. Today is actually the second day of hearing at the lower house. So what is your take on that factor? Okay, and then the second factor is that every model that I've seen so far is still, pegs onto either local currency, Malaysian ringgit or Pakistani rupee or US dollar. While every currency seems to be deflating over a period of time and thus affecting the value of Waqf also over time. So, we bring our models to the historic model of Medina. And we fail to see that the currency itself should be actually pegged to precious metals like gold or many other, commodities. As long as we keep pegging it to fiat currency, Waqf will keep losing its value. So I'm just picking your brain. What are your takes on this since you're working on the research on the book? Thank you.
Thank you very much. They are very important question both. For the first one, yes, that is true. Different countries, they have different Waqf model, not just a Waqf model, even Islamic finance, banking finance and financial products are different. So we lack standardization, even in Islamic financial products, one country on the basis of Hanafiya. So one product is not allowed in another country on the basis of Shafiya or Ahmadiyya or Malikiya, that product is allowed. So standardization there, so that's how, and that's why we could not and we have not been able to present the Islamic banking and finance as a unified, equally competitive alternative to conventional banking so far. So this is one of the major issues. I certainly agree with it. The same would be applied on the Waqf. So answer to that basically. So I will respond to it now. But then for understanding of this whole idea more, I would invite you for the event taking place here on the 10th. It's Sheikhul Islam Professor Dr. Muhammad Qadri would be addressing a meet and greet session, and precisely he'll be speaking about this subject, providing the solution. A couple of years ago, he wrote a very beautiful book, Standardization, on the standardization. In Arabic, it is called Intiqal Bain al-Madahib. In this concept, he wrote a wonderful work and he provided the evidence from Quran and Sunnah, and with the clarity and with evidence speaking on the subject. He said that Islam and even all these madahib provide us with a sufficient flexibility for those matters which are related to nations and international community. So one can easily and should shift from specifically following one madhab to any other practice within other madhab. So that is basically intiqal bain al-madahib for national and international level muamalat. So madhab is related to very specific your domestic issues, your ibadat, your faraid, wajibat, practices, namaz, your siyam, qiyam, all these matters. So, but when it comes to muamalat, which is dealing with the countries, so standardization is necessary. And Islam, as well as all these madahibul fiqh, they provide facility and flexibility. It is the matter of our narrow-mindedness and the rigidity of our ulama that we have not been able to adopt this option, which is actually provided by our madahib as well as by Quran and Sunnah. So Quran and Sunnah and madahib have a capacity and facility to accommodate the shifting from one madhab to other madhab, and considering it a better practice. So standardization can take place within the halal industry, within the Islamic banking and finance industry, as for Waqf. So when it will come to establishing such institution and under the OIC, I believe that a judiciary or a board of ulama is a part of that model, where all the ulama, the competent people from every single school of thought and belief will sit together for the sterilization purpose in relation to Waqf. This is the part of model, and Islam and Madhahibul faith actually provides the flexibility. So there is no limitation in Islam, neither in Madhahibul faith. The limitation is with our thinking process. So we have to evolve and grow up, I would say. So the second question was
Currency.
the currency, yeah.
And gold.
So, yeah, the currency and gold. So, yes, I again, I agree with your viewpoint on the subject. So when it comes to the Waqf, so the asset value and the fiat currency and everything. So one such institution, I do not want to pass any statement at this stage in relation to the currency or anything which actually politicize the whole idea at first place. So at first place, we need to form one such institution in a very nice and humble manner, so that at least countries and nations can come together and do something together to get rid of interest-based lending. Once such thing is formed, of course, all these great minds and the governments, they can come together to find a solution for that issue as well. Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah, we should be ending by 11:30 actually, but,
Yes.
for
it
your-
will take one more.
okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well,
Say briefly.
Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I am Dr. Ahmed Waliullah Siddiqui from India. My concern is, I'm very much thankful to the organizer for giving me this opportunity to ask some question with the very Indian personality here. We have come here to attend his speech and talk. My question is, in India, we have Waqf is the richest, second richest board after this railway board. So the government is, I'm not against government, but what my question is, the properties they are planning to undertake. The government is trying to take the properties. So my question is why there is a gap in the Muslim Ummah leadership, so that they can raise any question globally if it is arising about the concerns of the Muslim Ummah, and which way we can contribute for bringing this leadership together. My question.
Yes, the issue is basically, I believe some countries unjust practices or activities take place, but then people and then other Muslim countries, they do not raise their voice. We see everywhere this thing around the world. So this was actually the first part of my talk, where I said that the trust is not there, the bond is not there, the brotherhood, the concept of brotherhood, we have lost that. We have to recover and revive that idea. So that is the reason behind we don't trust each other, and our Western interests, they have become very much localized and domestic. So the country see if there is nothing happening to them, they would not poke their nose in the other countries' matter, even if the people are suffering. So unfortunately, that is the reality of today. So now your second part of the question, what could be done? Yes, there are always people living in influential countries who have influences on India as well. So, and Muslims living in these countries, especially Indian Muslims living in these countries, the business community who are good with lobbying, I believe they should work on with other governments who have good influences on Indian government. And Muslims from India, they should do the lobbying with the countries like Saudi Arabia and countries like other wealthy countries who have some good influence on the 88 government to stop from such acts which could damage the economic fabric of Muslims living in India. That is something a lobby can help. Thank you.
Alhamdulillah, we have successfully conducted the session. Thank you, again, thank you very much, Prof. Hussein Badri, for the insightful session. I would also like to thank the participants, for being here, as well as for your participation. Inshallah, we will meet again in the future. Last but not least, again, please, put your hands together to be in a grand, round of applause for Prof. Hussein Badri for the insightful, okay, over to you, Ms. Adila.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you, Professor and Dr. Hussein. Ladies and gentlemen, we are now ready to proceed with the signing of the letter of intent between IBF and Minhaj University Lahore. At this point, I would like to invite Professor Dr. Habibullah Zakaria and Prof. Dr. Hussein to come for this signing. To present our platform together towards common goals, leveraging our combined strength and resource. With And to show of gratitude and appreciation to our esteemed speaker, I would like to invite Assistant Professor Dr. Habibullah to present his certificate to our respectful officers. Thank you. Right, as we come to the end of this event, I want to thank each one of you for being here and making this event really special. Your presence and support mean the world to us. We have one more important activity, that is a photo group photo session. So we need to.
Yes.
I
mean.
Yeah.
Stand here, I think you should stand here in front of the table for the group here. Then. Everybody coming over that side. Standing or sitting? When has the audience come represented?
Everyone can move to the center. We'll have all these seats here in the center.
Right, everyone ready? Fine. 1, 2, 3. One more. Can I have thumbs up? Everyone, thumbs up. Last 1, 2, 3. Okay.
Thank you all for your cooperation and those beautiful smiles. Thank you once again for being part of this special occasion. That is the end of the event with performance of my taste service. Enjoy the rest of your day and thank you. Goodbye.